Hi, I'm Mike.
I'm Josh.
I'm Angela.
I'm Nick.
I'm Tyler.
And this is NFGeeks.
200th episode.
That's right. This is the 200th episode of NFGeeks. And it's a special episode because what we have represented here is the entire collective consciousness of NF. So this is a real NFGeeks episode because we're going to hear entirely from NF in its totality, which hasn't really happened here on NFGeeks. And I don't know if it's happened on any channel. So I think this is a special moment, and I'm very grateful that all of you are here and participating. So what I'd like to do is, starting on the left, if we could again do the names and announce your type so everybody knows who is what type going across. So John, I'll start with you.
I'm an ENFJ.
Okay.
I'm an ENFP.
INFJ.
INFP.
All right, great. We have a division of extroversion, introversion. That's kind of funny.
Well, I arranged in alphabetical order.
Oh, really? Was that the
Yeah.
alphabetical? But
He
look how it
planned it
turned
just
out.
like he should.
Look how it turned out.
Very
NF
geeky.
force, metaphorically. You know.
We have the
divided.
Jedi Council.
We are the NF Jedi Council.
Yeah, it sure is, and I've been wanting to do this for a long time, so this is great. Okay, so let's begin. What I'm going to do is what I do with, in fact, I've done with most of you, is go through NF values and just kind of for you guys to kind of talk about how these NF values connect with you or how they come up in your life, and to have a conversation. Okay, so everybody ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so one of the issues that comes up with NF, and this is just general NF, everybody knows this, is the issue of empathy. Okay, that NFs have a ability to be empathic. That's our strongest suit, and our strongest suit amongst all the temperaments and types. And so I'd like you to start, just kind of give us I don't know, some ideas about how empathy ends up in your life. Anybody want to start?
Anybody?
I think personally, I always have like a really good time reading people, like knowing how they're feeling, but like I don't really always care. Like if I don't think if I don't think they're upset for like a good reason, I'll be like, oh, that's stupid. Like, get over it.
So you'll take the time to understand what the problem is, but then afterwards it's like,
then I judge whether or not it's okay for them to be upset.
This is the difference between empathy and sympathy, though.
Yeah, right.
I agree.
With people like NFJs who have FE, because I'm the same way. Like as soon as you said that, I was like, yep, same thing. Like I can read it, I can see it, and I can feel for someone in the moment when I'm interacting with them, but when I'm out of sight, it's kind of out of mind.
Yeah.
It's not because I'm being cold, it's just because when I leave, it's just not there anymore.
Right.
So in the moment, I can feel something, but I feel like that's an FE thing. Versus I don't know how like introverted feeling deals with, say, experiencing someone else's either pain or any emotional state.
Well,
Maybe put off or sometimes.
yeah. That's a little bit. That's probably that's an introverted thing. I feel like it's kind of, you almost like hold it in. But with me, I'm always like pushing it out at everybody, But at the same time, it's a difference between when it's something close to me and when it's not. Because the one problem I have is I want to help everybody, even when I know clearly well that I cannot do anything about it. I'll still want to do something about it, and that almost bothers me more. So I kind of have to separate myself. I've had to be able to separate myself, because otherwise I feel like that for every little thing that happens, and I always want to help everybody, which is a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing.
See, I'm not as much like that. I kind of pick and choose, and I'm able to pick and choose and kind of like classify, like, okay, this and rank kind of
like prioritize a little
exactly,
bit.
yeah,
With
absolutely.
you guys, do you like, if someone gets hurt physically, does your body kind of like simulate that? Because I've had that happen to me.
like sympathy pains kind of thing. Yeah. That used to happen to me all the time. Is that was one connection my mom and I had was all the couple of years that I was in and out of the hospital. Anytime that I was sick, my mom would get sick like immediately afterwards. And I feel like that's a different thing because that's obviously a mom and a child thing. But it even can happen to like sisters and brothers or anything like that. I know what you're talking about though. With
Yeah,
that.
like one time at work, I like hit someone with like a tray by accident, and like I immediately felt it like where he got hit. It was weird.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
Yeah. I don't feel like I
Doesn't
wouldn't
happen a
feel
lot, but-
physical
No, I
pain,
can
but like
understand that, yeah.
emotional.
But I don't.
Sometimes emotional pain, but like it's more with fake people. Like if I'm watching a show, like Grey's Anatomy gets me emotional all the time.
Like, you
I always
connect
feel
with
bad
it.
for like the patients or like patients' moms or whatever, or the doctors. But like in real life, like I'd be like, oh, that sucks, dude.
Well,
I just
that's-
keep doing stuff.
When you're watching that, or like when you're experiencing someone else's pain, do you feel it in that moment, or do you take it with yourself, or can you remove yourself once the moment's over?
I don't bring it with me because like at the same time I know it's fake, but like in the moment I'm like, oh shit, this is
That's
real.
what I mean.
Arizona and Cali are gonna have a baby. I don't know what's going on. Like I get sad.
See,
I
I said that to someone on Facebook today. One of our followers put on a post online saying that she felt connections with certain things, and I asked her, if you're watching a show or you're watching a movie and you see something happens to like a little kid, good or bad, do you feel like you connect with it emotionally versus if it was happening like right in front of you? It makes a difference if it's almost like you said, like it's fake, but at the same time you're like, oh my god, this could actually happen to somebody.
Yeah,
That's what
right.
kind of happens to me a little bit. Whether it's good or bad, it happens.
Yeah, no, either way, like it's mostly in the moment feeling versus like I can connect with it and just internalize it and take it. It's always like this. Like if you were crying right now, if something happened right now, like I'd be very emotional, very like flustered.
Because I'm directly in front of you.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's not like I wouldn't care when I left. It's just that I'm not
Watching
when
you
I'm
cry.
Yeah, when I'm not there, there's other stuff going on.
Yeah.
I'd probably be trying to think of some, probably intellectualize it after, but I don't know if I would. I don't know.
Well, that leads me to another question. This is a good segue for all of you. As you know, I have this thing called NF moments, when the NFs sort of know that something's going on in the world that we can't explain. We can only sort of say out loud in metaphors, but it'd be right because we're NFs. What I'm getting at is actually the intuitive side of NF.
Yeah.
That abstract ability to know things, and then obviously the NF moments. So when I say NF moments or the intuition part of us, what comes to mind?
It almost kind of is like having your own spidey sense. Kind of. I feel like that's how it works a lot. Like you'll just be sitting there and you'll be like, oh, I wonder if thing is gonna go to that place, and then you'll text them and they're like, dude, I'm so going today. Like you should come too. And like stuff like that. It just happens all the time. Like you just know someone's gonna be somewhere, or something's gonna happen, or someone's gonna call you. Happens all the time.
I get it with like items. Like I'll see something before I leave the house, and then I'll be like, I should take that, and I take it, and I end up needing specifically that item.
See, that's weird. I'm like the opposite. I'll be like, oh, I need to go to the fridge for something, and then I'll go and I'll forget what I was doing. So I'm one of those people that I forget very quickly. But at the same time, mine's kind of a little bit, when I think of intuitive, I think of emotional sense. Like if I'm someplace, and I don't know if maybe it's because I'm a girl, maybe I have that too. I think that has a little bit to do with it also. But if I'm someplace where I'm uncomfortable, that uncomfortableness hits me like to the highest extent. Like my thought process immediately goes to what's the worst possible thing that could happen to me right now.
Me and Mike did a video on kind of how intuition fuels feeling and how feeling fuels intuition. And I think that's like a specific NF thing versus say like an NT. I don't think that's something they relate to in terms of how intuition affects emotion. But the way I see intuition affecting emotion is that, and we talked about this, that it's an amplifier. Basically, if you feel something and then you go in your head and you start to contemplate it, it just multiplies and multiplies and amplifies the feeling, and then the feeling gets more extreme, which in turn like will start to like fuel more intuition.
Gets your anxiety going, even if it's good stuff, even if it's good things, you start thinking of the best thing that could happen.
Overhyped, like.
And it's just emotional highs and lows a lot of times because
Exactly.
it's like the two are just feeding each other. I said this in the other video, so I mean you can check that out, but it's like that's the crazy thing for me, especially like kind of like having dominant intuition, because it's the kind of thing that just starts to just feed and multiply, and it turns into either emotional messes or emotional positivity or negativity. It's just like up and down.
You get that snowball effect too. I feel like that's kind of
Exactly.
how the human mind works in general.
That's
Is you
what it
get
is,
that
yeah.
snowball effect, and
They just start hacking on each other, and then you can either use it for like good or bad or whatever. But
I
it's
don't feel
still
like I ever really
happens.
like lose control of my emotions. Like I never really feel like it gets me overwhelmed. I feel like even like as bad as like something can get, I can always like use it to focus. Like I never lose myself in it though. And I can always bring it to a place that it can help me.
That could be an introvert extrovert difference too. You know, I mean, like
being able to holster the feelings, kind of take the time to understand all your feelings and where they should be directed, and then put it out.
Right.
I feel like that kind of works a little bit more with
could
the
be
I.
that too, yeah. But I feel like because like with an extrovert or an introvert, your primary modes are like external first, you know, whereas like anything that I'm going through, and you too, maybe you start with what's going on with you first, and then once you're done with you, then you're like, okay, now I'm able to kind of get out.
Especially with FI as dominant.
Yeah. What is that like?
It's just really horrible sometimes. Like you find yourself in conflict with other people over like things they said or something. Like much more easily, I find.
Do you feel like you overthink things? Like if you ever have like even just the thing that it really is like the stupidest conflict ever with somebody, you feel like they're immediately like never gonna be your friend again over it?
Yeah, I'll overthink
like you
things a lot.
overthink something that comes out of your mouth immediately after it happens. That happens to me a lot.
No, that's an NF thing, because I was like, yeah.
Overthinking everything that happens in your life.
Yep.
Nope, I don't
For
care.
better or worse.
And into it.
Yeah, you don't care.
Nope,
but
don't
there's
care.
a difference.
I don't overthink anything. I just do it. I don't know.
That's a way to go
I'm
about
the
it.
weird one.
No, it doesn't make you weird. It just makes you where you are.
Maybe that's just a cocky ENFJ thing.
Possibly.
All right. Well, let me ask another question then about NF values, and this is one I've been would like to hear very much, and that is, I got to word it right. NFs value sort of being catalysts and helping people through transformation of some kind, from get to A to B, but A to B in sort of some sort of personal transformation, not necessarily in any kind of concrete way or even intellectual way, but to sort of help them achieve some sort of greater thing in life through touching them in some way. So I'd like you to talk about that and how that is in your lives, or what you think about that as NFs.
One thing that I like to do in terms of like I think one of my greatest passions, because I was thinking about this a lot, like within the last year especially, and I think like if I could like really like just being vague in general, like one of my favorite passions is like taking something good and making it great, basically just being a maximizer, because like when something's good, there's already a set of patterns that has made it where it is right there, whether it be a person, if you're working like with a business or anything and you're trying to make it better, or any project, whatever. If it's good, there's already a pattern for why it's good, whether it be like intrinsic, like the nuts and bolts of what makes it good. And I think like one of my favorite things to do is take that and then make it better in the future. Because once you have the pattern, once you have a piece of the pattern and you can rely on the concept that it's going to repeat, then you kind of know where to go from there. And that could, like I said, that could be with a person, a project, hobbies, business, anything. And that's like something in terms of like transforming things, like being a maximizer, making something good and taking it from good to great.
So you're talking about like the literal term of improving something.
Exactly, yeah. But making sure that it still follows the pattern that's already been established. So for instance, if you're the kind of person who you have all these good qualities about yourself, aptitudes for whatever. Say you're just like, I don't know what to do with my life right now. Like I'm just at a standstill. Kind of getting to know what that person's past is, getting all the pieces of like what the repeated patterns are, taking those and then amplifying them into like the right direction.
Have be a life coach. That's
should.
good. That's a good job to have for that. It really is.
A lot of NFs are life coaches, so it's funny you say that.
Yeah.
And like I want to be like a professor, and like the way I remember like the moment I knew I wanted to be one was something like Mike actually said in class, and he said a real like teacher's job is not to like everyone like always has that famous phrase like a teacher's job is to like mold minds, but a teacher's job shouldn't be to mold minds, but to be more like a gardener and like pour water on it and make them grow. And then when he said that like really clicked with me, and like I thought like yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to help people grow and become the best version of what they can be.
Well, that's kind of what I was talking about. Whereas like if you have a seed, or even a baby plant or whatever, it's still got all the patterns of potential success. It has the same biology going on. All you have to do is actually take what patterns have worked before with other plants or whatever, and just do it to the best of your ability, you know, because that has potential. Because there's already a pattern in motion by just what it is, what it intrinsically is. Some things are intrinsically just bad, so you just don't do anything with them. They're just a waste.
You can make them the worst thing they can possibly be.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But the best thing to do is really to take what's good and make it great.
All right. Then let's take a little turn here. This is another topic that I want to talk about with all you guys, and that is I'd like you to touch on the concept of authenticity. This is obviously something very important for NF, so that's been a part of NFGeeks, for better or for worse, you know, good or bad, you know, to be authentic even when the plane's crashing. So I'd like you to sort of talk about that. Where are you authentic in your lives, and how are you authentic as an NF yourself?
I think you should, me personally, it's how I view it, if you're going to value authenticity high, then you have to be authentic everywhere in your life. Because if you're not in a certain area, then that throws everything off. Then you're not being authentic at all if you're not 100% authentic. And to me, that's like one of the most important qualities. Like, I don't care if your personality, if you're a certain type of way, as long as that's who you really are all the time. And that's the most important thing to me when it comes to authenticity.
Even if you're a jerk.
Yeah, be a jerk all the
I
time.
agree with that.
Be a jerk to everyone, but if that's who you are, be that.
That's a peeve of mine is being a fake person, and I've had plenty of friends like that, and that's I think one of the worst things I had as an NF is I've been able to tell character, but I feel like it's more character of I know who you can be, but who they actually are to me could be a totally separate thing. So that's kind of how you end up without those friends.
I like what
is later you find out that they're not what you would like them to be, or who you know they are versus who they are separately. You know what I mean? Where somebody could be a totally different person with you than they are with other people. That's not being authentic, because you're not being you. Because if you were being you, you'd be the same way with all of your friends, whether it's girlfriend, your boyfriend, your parents, your brothers and sisters, people you hang out with at school, whatever. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the things I always had trouble with, was I was always friends with everybody in school, but it was because I just hung out with everybody because it didn't make a difference to me, because that's just who I was. I was able to connect with everybody on some level with something in their life.
Yeah.
And that's why it happened, but it's also why I made a lot of enemies, because the way that society teaches us, you can't be friends with everybody, which is stupid in my opinion. But I don't know.
And like I find when you do find someone to be fake, like for me, it like turns me off right away. Like I don't want to be around them at all.
I think that's the essence of awkwardness. That's what makes you awkward, is when you're just not yourself. And I like what both of you guys have said, but what you brought up, which is that you gotta be, no matter what kind of person you are, you gotta be that to the highest extreme. Even if that's kind of not necessarily being an asshole, but like, basically like one thing I always say is like, I don't need you to be nice. I don't need you to be nice and comforting to me. I just need you to be yourself. Because I'm not gonna hate you. Then I'll at least be able to admire the fact that you can like take who you are and run with it to the highest extreme.
And we can certainly like read that, like if someone's not being genuine.
Yeah, I want to know what, because I knew this was going to come up, and I was like, I got to get like an INFP, like to talk about like being real. Because that seems, INFP to me seems to be like
the most realistic, the most reality driven kind of thing.
Yeah, like the most.
Not really, not reality. I wouldn't say that.
I was gonna say like INFP seems to be the one that's like most.
I just don't care about like social standards.
Wants to be themselves.
Yeah,
the most.
I just don't put time into like as much time as anyone else would. And I find that with the FI and the FE, I find FE to me seems shallower. I mean, at the same time, I kind of admire it because you guys tend to be able to connect more easily with people than like someone like an INFP with FI.
I agree. No, I always say that there's
Like-
so much confusion between like INFP and INFJ.
Yeah,
This
I
is-
knew this girl that was an INFJ and she was
Yeah.
like really introverted like me, but she always threw me off because she had like FE, so she would just like she could go up to a stranger like perfectly. I could never do that.
It surprises you because when you're
Yeah.
one on one, you're like, oh, this person.
I always thought she was an
exactly like
extrovert.
me.
And I'm like,
And you really know the difference between like either two types or, how different you are from a person is when you take it out of the one on one and you take
Yeah.
the two, say like the two individuals and you go out into the world and you're like, fuck, they're not as much like me. Because I think FI and NI can kind of seem similar, in terms of like how you feel, how you react, but it's two different processes. And that's the thing I always say, like, I say this on the message board all the time whenever the whole, oh, I'm INFJ, but I think that like more, I feel extrovert or this. I say, because I think that INFJ is one of the most, or anybody with FE above tertiary is the most extroverted
yeah.
of their kind. If you're like an ISFJ or an INFJ, I feel like those are the two most extroverted introverts. I should say most outgoing extroverts.
Yeah, I can
introverts.
relate to that. My mom's an ISFJ, and she's one of those people where she is very introverted to herself and around like other people. But when it's in certain contexts,
Yeah.
she will be the most social person you've ever
Oh,
seen in your
exactly.
life. She's done
Yeah.
sales, she's done all that, which even it comes down to jobs are like that too. And it goes back to being authentic too. Is having a job that you want to be at is the only way you're really going to be happy, because you can tell even something. The one thing that would stick in my mind is like you go to a restaurant and you can tell that the person who's waiting on you hates their job and hates being around people. They should have no business being in a job if they have to
Yeah.
be around people. Same thing with me. I'm good at being around people and I enjoy helping others, but I feel like I want to do more of like a therapy related
Yeah,
speaking
like
to people,
one-on-one.
because it's more one-on-one. Because even though I'm extremely extroverted, and anybody who knows me will know that I can walk into a complete room full of strangers and I'll know everyone's name by the end of the day. And
But you like that personal.
but I
connection
love
with
that
yourself.
personal time, and even if I can, especially if I can get another NF, and like you guys have watched all the videos with Mike and I, that Mike and I connect on certain things that when we talk about, it comes right in, and even you and I will connect on certain things when we're talking that we almost like know what the other one's gonna say, even though we never see each other. When was the last time we saw each other? Like 7 months ago?
Probably.
We were talking today and almost like finishing sentences because we like kind of had that feeling. So it's weird. It's different. It depends on who you're around, really.
All right. This topic I wanted you to talk about is one that's very close to my heart, in light of my life and education and whatever, and that is the subject of the humanities and the humanities subjects. Because NFs sort of have an affinity and a love of the humanities subjects. And when I say humanities, I mean philosophy, art, literature, music, religious thought, theology. All of those are sort of humanities topics. And all of you I know are sort of involved in some of these humanities topics one way or the other. So I'd like you to talk about that. What do you think about these humanities subjects, and how do you approach them as an NF, and how do they come out of you as an NF?
I think it's a shame that like in our country and in most countries really, like the humanities are like undervalued as far as not part of like core like curriculum and like raising a child. Like everyone focuses so much on like math and science and then like skill sets, and like yeah, those things are important, but like I think the thing that you need a broader like spectrum of what provokes your thoughts, not just always the same old thing. And it's important to like read interesting novels, discuss difficult subjects, whether it be philosophical or theological. It's important to express yourself with art, music. All those things I think are really important for making a more well-rounded individual, and I think it helps you grow a lot as a person. I mean, knowing math and science is important, but I think those things on an individual level can help you really grow a lot, and I think it's something that we should try to have more of.
Yeah, like you have to almost I feel like the humanities provokes your emotional side. You know what I mean? And Mike will tell you guys this, that when I first started coming to the school, the first day I was in his class, he asked me what I was doing for a major. I was trying to get a degree in office administration because I wanted to just get a job, make some money, just like everybody else does when they come to this school. And he said, "You're gonna hate it. I can tell your personality right off the bat. You need to be doing this stuff." And 6 weeks into the class, I decided that that's what I wanted to do. And now I'm going for a full-fledged psychology degree to do expressive therapy, which is art, music, working with painting, working with any kind of music. And I love music. I don't know what it is, but music is like my therapy. No matter what's going on in my life, if I just like jam out in my car, I'm happy. Everything's good. If I can sing some blues music or country music or whatever it is, and I say those because I feel like those two are the most emotional, connective kind of music.
It's interesting that you said that because I was having like a discussion with a friend of mine. We were actually watching The Voice.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it. And we were like, with like a lot of different songs, like especially like the way how radio's like really commercialized, like a lot of songs you can just like sing and they'll sound good. But like country music is like that one genre of music that like you really have to be about it. Like you really have to feel what's going
That's why
on
Taylor
in
Swift
the song
ruined it.
when you sing it. Because if you sing a song and you're not emotionally invested in that song, like you're not feeling what's going on in there, everyone that listens to it knows and it sounds like shit.
Well,
But if you really feel what you're singing, it sounds great.
It's exactly the
And
same
that's like-
reason why certain people who have come into country music can't continue with it, because it's almost, and you don't want to say it that way, but it's almost like if you haven't had those things happen to you, you're never going to have that kind of connection. And that happens in blues music, in even hip hop a little bit, depending on what
Most
year
settings.
range you're looking at. And but country music and even old kind of stuff helps you do that connection. If you can't make that connection, that's why only certain people like country music, because
Right.
only the people who can really
Who've like known
who
that
can
pain
get into
can
it,
feel it and get into the song.
exactly, or can do it. It's the same reason why on The Voice, when people do country music in front of Blake, only certain people does he say, "I feel the connection. I feel like you're actually singing it like you feel it." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in other parts, in other kinds of music, you don't have to even be emotionally attached to it to be able to sing it.
Yeah, right. You can just say it.
Yeah. Well, I have a theory about the humanities and like say like especially things that you consume. So like a lot of stuff in the entertainment business industry, meaning like music, acting, but even anything that can be commercialized with the humanities, like literature, music, works of art, performance. One of the reasons why they're suffering, because this is where this started, was like, why isn't this, why doesn't everybody love this stuff? Why are people so hell-bent on the practical? It's because the practical can produce right away. And the practical actually gives you, not necessarily an immediate return, but a more predictable return. And the biggest thing that I have against, the biggest thing that pisses me off about the humanities in general is that people aren't willing to pay for them. People aren't willing to pay the top dollar for music. People aren't willing to pay the top dollar for literature, for art, for performance, philosophy. Everyone's Googling everything. That's great and everything. But whenever something can be bought, I buy it if I'm able to. People are willing to, of course, buy clothing and cars and everything else. But the thing that really screws with me is that because a lot of the humanities aren't tangible, meaning you can't hold what you're reading. You can't hold what you're listening to in music. Yeah, you can see it and you can be there, but because you can't take it home with you necessarily, people are not necessarily willing to pay for it.
They don't value it because it's not a physical material thing.
They don't value it because it hits a part of you that can't be measured by science, and that's the thing that really gets to me, is that people aren't willing to pay for it. If you're not willing to pay for it, then there's not going to be an industry or an economy towards it. How is it going to grow and how is it going to spread? Whereas the reason why business engineering, science, and all that stuff actually make an impact and spread the farthest is because you can measure it.
In money.
Yeah.
You can measure it in money.
Exactly. And the humanities a lot of times are intangible things that you consume without,
But I also
But
feel like I like it that way though, because I feel like if there were, it goes back to the authenticity. For the most part, people who do humanities, people who understand it, and even the four of us sitting here, we all want to be here. We all
Oh,
want
totally.
to be talking about it because we feel a connection with the material.
Because it's more valuable than materials.
Yeah.
Well,
Damn
we
it.
love it.
Yeah.
The difference is that we love it, but the the objective is to get other people who don't love it to consume it, whereas the other stuff that people get, we still consume. So.
All right, that's great, everybody. Thank you for doing this. This is our first episode, and we'll be moving on to part 2. So thank you very much, you guys.